In our smartphone watch, the troubles at Nokia are going from bad to worse. Standard & Poor's is lowering Nokia's debt rating, citing the company's losses in smartphone market share. The long-term debt rating was reduced by one step to BBB, just 2 steps above junk. The move comes after data show that both Apple and Samsung surpassed Nokia in smartphone shipments for the first time last quarter. Now, for more on the shifts in the global smartphone market and the dynamics in both developed and emerging markets, we're joined by Bill Morelli, a director at IMS Research, which focuses on mobile worldwide handset sales. He joins us now from Austin, Texas. And Bill, I'd like to start with Apple. You are skeptical that Apple's advantage can last forever. Why?
Well, I think Apple's been tremendously strong in the market since they launched in 2007. However, they are basically building their brand around one handset. And increasingly, they're facing competitors that are launching 2 and 3 handsets at a time that are able to compete now with the iPhone in terms of hardware and in terms of specifications. So as we see the entry-level smartphone really start to drive the growth in the smartphone market, we're going to see Apple have to differentiate their platform a little bit and spread the platform out a little bit. So and what we expect to see in the next few months as they introduce the iPhone 5 is that Apple will in fact have a lower-end phone that they'll be introducing for prepaid customers to try and stave that off and increase the growth in their market share.
So is this going to be a lower-end phone or just an older model of the iPhone?
Exactly right. What we expect to see is probably something like the 3GS that will still be a full-featured iPhone. It will just be a slightly older hardware spec. They'll have the iPhone 5 or the newest iteration of the iPhone, which will be the premium handset brand. And that way they'll be able to maintain the margins. They'll be able to maintain the user experience that they're used to without having to sacrifice anything. Because that's really what's been driving Apple's growth so strongly.
Now, even with just the single one model, retention rates are vastly different. For the iPhone, it's a 97% retention rate. For Android, it's 40-some%. Why is that? Is it because Apple's products are so good or because the other products are so bad?
Well, Apple's products are very, very good. So not to take anything away from Apple, but they also have this enormous iTunes ecosystem that they've developed with the App Store and iTunes that are delivering music, games, and multimedia content to consumers. And that's a powerful hook when you've built your entire portable library around Apple and increasingly your home library. Android, while it's come a tremendously long way in a short period of time, is still struggling to compete on that front. They've grown the App Store, but they still haven't provided the same library of multimedia content to users.
Now, globally, how big do you think Apple can become? I mean, because of the prices, there are so many people in emerging markets that simply can't afford an iPhone.
We do expect to see iPhones and Apple in particular going to probably about 25% of the market and then leveling off. I expect Apple will be very happy with that because that will let them, bear in mind, this is a market that we expect to see hit 1 billion units by 2016. So we're not talking 25% of that is a very significant amount of consumer goods. And it lets them still maintain their status as a premium provider. That leaves room for the Samsungs and the HTs and the RIMs of the world to also provide units that for folks that don't necessarily want an iPhone. Maybe they prefer a QWERTY keypad on the handset, or they like the software that Android offers a little bit better.
So who can be the winner in the global smartphone market?
It's going to depend greatly on what happens over the course of the next year with a lot of the patent litigation that's surrounding Android at the moment. Because one of the big benefits for Android at the moment, and one of the reasons so many manufacturers are pushing it very aggressively, is that it's an easy platform to get into with fairly low cost compared to the licensing fees of a Windows Phone 7 series. But at the same time, there are companies like Oracle that have now come forward and are applying patent litigation to it, and as we're seeing in other areas of the market. And this is making the future for Android a little cloudy at the moment. So it is possible there may be some pullback from Android as larger manufacturers like Samsung are starting to launch their own in-house OS, operating system like Bada.
It certainly would get expensive if Google had to pay royalties on every Android phone out there. I do want to ask you about Nokia as well. How serious is this spot that they're in? Can they come back?
It's going to be a difficult process for Nokia. They've had a tremendous number of layoffs in the R&D division, which it's an excellent cost-cutting measure, but it also makes it more difficult to innovate, especially innovate at a rapid pace, which is the position that they've put themselves in. They now have a partner with Microsoft who's as heavily invested in their success as they are, and I think that may be one of the things that will help them pull out of this if they can. Really, the onus is on them to deliver an incredibly strong handset offering with premium hardware and an excellent user experience on the Windows Phone interface. And best bet they'll have something out toward the end of this year. More than likely, we won't see them shipping in volume till the beginning of 2012. And that gives us 3-4 more quarters for the Samsungs, the LGs, the HTCs to be nipping at their heels and eating away more of their market share. And that's the real danger for them is they've come from an incredibly high place at 41% of the market. Now they're struggling at 16%. Much the same way we saw Motorola do this several years ago, where they lost share that they've just never gained back. Motorola's now, it's a competitive player in the smartphone space, but nowhere near the volumes that they used to have.
All right. Bill, those numbers are indeed striking. Bill Morelli of IMS Research, thanks so much for joining us. We will be watching those changing dynamics in the smartphone market.